All right, cool. This is the fun part. We get to go in and take a look at those really cool lights and flares that Adam shot, see what he did in his comp, and then look for the ones that we like, see if they line up, and figure out a way to integrate them. We don't know exactly how, but we just rely on these consistent methods, and we'll always figure out how to do it. So I'm going to go back out to Adam's comp. And let's take a look again what he did. So looks like he used 16518. And then 16519. Where he brushed in a little bit more light there. Sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out what a photographer did in the comp, but you don't always have to match exactly. Okay, so he used 16519 for more so for the front lights, but also brought a little bit back into the back ones. So we could probably use, we'll use a combination of 518 and 519. And then I don't really think that we need this for the heel, because I don't think that change in value or luminosity back there is really needs to come from the actual shot. I think we can just open that up with a curve. Yeah, in his overall curve, he just added some contrast over the top. So let's go into Capture One and take a look at 518 and 519, see if we like it. Okay, so we're in Capture One. Let's look and try to find 518, 511, 518. Oh, so he used the lit exposures, not the dark ones. Let's see here. So I think these are very similar between the lit one and either 513 or 512. So this is a good learning moment, because the photographer chose a plate for the lights that we as retouchers might not use, because he's thinking in different terms. We're thinking of flexibility, we're thinking of fidelity and quality. And I don't know about you, but I sure as hell don't want to remove that massive specular highlight again, because even though that was pretty easy using frequency separation, I don't want to do that work again, because at this stage we're comping in new photographic elements, so we're going to have to go through a cleaning step again, because there's going to be stuff in this photo, just like there was in our base photo, that we need to clean up. It's probably going to be a lot less cleanup if we use this lights out exposure. I'm guessing. And you're going to run into this a lot when you're doing compositing, is the question of, well, do I composite these elements together at the beginning of the process before I go in and do, my bulletproof file setup and all my cleaning, or do I do it later? It's a constant back and forth choice, and sometimes it makes sense to do it one way, sometimes the other. In this case, we're clearly going to have to composite these elements in now and do any additional cleanup that's required at this stage. It's kind of a bummer to jump back into that mode, but you have to do that in certain cases. So I'm going to go for it with this exposure. You know, maybe I'll open up both 512 and 415. I'm going to export variants. Oh, not originals. Cancel. Desktop, image name, TIFF uncompressed. Okay, it looks like all of our settings are correct still. And those should open automatically into Photoshop. And Capture One always demands your attention after it saves out variants, and you have to go back and tell it okay. Let's go back into Photoshop. Radio. So now we have to think about how we're going to integrate these. I'd like to be able to bring both of them in and choose which one I could use. And I'll show you the down and dirty way that is often used, and then I'll show you the right way. A lot of people just drag this in and set it to screen. And that gets some pretty nice results really fast. It's good for visualizing what this is going to look like. We could drag it in to the Bubble Soul. Take a look at it in there. That looks really pretty nice. Let's turn it on and off. So it's not perfectly lined up, that's for sure. Let's just nudge it. So the fact that it's not perfectly lined up means that the camera shifted a little bit on set. That's going to be a really typical thing to see is some camera shift, and so you just have to account for that. Hopefully it's not drastic and it's just a position change like this. So let's turn on and off. So yeah, I like this exposure a lot. What I'm going to do is turn it back to normal. And I'm going to bring it up to the top. Now, what I want to do here is isolate these elements. So I'm going to go right back into my channels. I'm going to see which one looks best. In this entire shoot, I think the green channel looks best. So what I'm going to do is duplicate that channel and create a new one. Because you can guess what I'm going to do here. I'm going to create a channel mask. So I'm going to add some contrast. And bring the black point down just enough to turn a lot of the surrounding information to black. And then I'm going to use the ever reliable tool of burn to black out the rest of the stuff here, because I want to create a clean mask for this highlight information, because I don't simply want to slap this exposure on the top and set it to screen, because it just, in my experience, it creates potential problems down the road, and I don't have complete control over the image when I slap things together like that, which I don't like. So I'm going to outline this because I want to make sure everything surrounding this information is black. And this is a good start. I may not know exactly what I'm going to do with this, but once again, I'm just going to isolate it, and that starts me on the path for high quality, successful compositing. So let's see here. I don't know exactly how I'm going to use this yet. So what I'm going to do is just create a new group and put that mask on it. And I'm going to call it lights. And I'm just going to dump that layer in there. See what happens. So pretty cool. I want to put it below the Air Max because I want our nice clean logo to sit on top, right? See, this is another thing. Setting up the file like this, I can do stuff like this so quickly because I've already got all that stuff figured out, and I don't really have to mess with it. I mean, that looks really good. And we have a mask here that it's all contained within. That's what's inside of it. Beautiful. Let's put this inside the bubble sole layer. So it kind of pulled a little bit of it off the red sole there, which is good. That's what I want to see. I want it to be contained within that mask. So this is a great result. I really like how this is working. Let's check it against Adam's comp and see if we're still aligned. So it looks like in Adam's comp, he's got the front lights. We'll call those the front lights, the lights that are coming through the front holes in the shoe. They look a lot brighter in his comp. So what can we do to brighten those up? Let's see. So this is the one. Do we use 16514 for that? I don't know if that was labeled. Let's see. No, it looks like we used the brighter one. I think we did. Let's take a look at that mask. I wonder if we can just add a curve in there that will brighten those up. That's starting to get, oops, don't add a crazy curve. So they're kind of plugging up in atoms, which maybe that's good. Let's try this. I'm going to drop a curve on top because it has a little bit of variation in there that I do like. It's not totally well organized, but I want to keep some of that stuff. I think that this is bright enough. Here, I want to turn that off. Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to dodge on the mask in here to let that show through a little bit more. So I'm going to ditch this curve that I just brought up because I don't want to do that. Let's switch to the dodge tool. And I'm Just going to dodge that mask open a bit. Okay, let's take a look back at Adam's comp, see what we got. Okay, that's a lot better. That's a lot closer to what he did. I think they're just bright enough. I've retained some of the detail, and I can brighten them up more if I need to later. But now I want to switch over to do that cleanup that I talked about. And so I think now at this stage, now that I've seen this light integration, I feel in retrospect confident about the choice that I made not to comp this in right at the beginning, because we don't really know. The client might come back and say, you know what, I don't like this light idea that you've done at all. It messes up our shoe. We sent it, we ran it up the flagpole at the HQ, and somebody higher up said they don't like the lights. So can you take those off? So if I've stuck those in there and baked that all in at the beginning, at that point I'm looking at like some pretty serious steps back to the beginning of my retouching, and that would be pretty time consuming. So at this stage, I have a nice clean base shoe, and now I can put in these light features, but I can go back and forth between those two in just a matter of seconds. So once again, setting up in this systematic way gives us flexibility later. So there is a level of commitment right now to these light features, because I'm going to need to stamp up and run a new frequency separation in order to do the cleanup. So let's just do that. And you'll see we can always step back. I'm going to hold down Shift, Option, Command, and hit Merge Layers in the drop-down and the Layers palette. And what that's going to do is take the two layers that I've selected here, the two layer groups I selected, and merge them right into one pixel layer. So I'm going to group that. I'm going to call that FS Lights, so I know what it's all about. Duplicate up, run my separation. I think I can keep that setting that I've used all along, which is 4, but let's zoom in and just take a closer look and see how much we're wiping off the low layer. So this is interesting. I know I want to be able to smooth and contour some of the information in here. So I think I want to do an even smaller frequency separation this time. I'm going to do it all the way down at 2 and see what that does. And so once again, you can see here the power of median, that it's blurred what we want it to blur, but it's also kept these edges so that I can work on them. All right, I'm going to turn off my high for now, and I'm just going to go through and work on these guys with the amazing and ultimately powerful mixer brush tool. Duplicate up, rasterize layer. I'm gonna ditch this low now because I'm trying to save file size, and I know Mixer Brush takes a lot of system resources, so I'm just gonna be bold and hope that I don't have to go back to that. But I remember my value there was 2, so I can remake that if I need to, if this doesn't work well. Remember to reduce the spacing in your brush settings all the way down. So this is just a great tool for doing this level of shaping. We want to really try to keep these edges pretty sharp, but I think one of the things that's creating the distracting stuff is that they're a little too jaggy on the edges. It just looks maybe a touch too sharp, so I might end up softening those edges more globally. I can do it a little bit here selectively with the brush, but I might actually blur that later. So what I'm doing here is looking for resolution. Now, not resolution like we're used to talking about in relationship to size. I'm looking for visual resolution of shapes, because the problem here is that a lot of these shapes are just like sort of amorphous, disorganized, and what I want to do is just give them a little bit more sort of purpose and finish so that they read a little bit better. We don't want to be wasting our viewers' time with stuff that isn't organized. Let's see. I'm going to clean up a lot of the chunky stuff around there on the high, but first this is starting to just take a little bit better shape. Let's see, maybe we can just keep high on and save a little bit of time. Sometimes if you obsess over the low layer too much, you're contouring things that you might not even see later. I'm going to switch on to the high right now and just see if there's any things that I would need to fix on the low after I start trimming all the chunks off the high. So I'm using the clone stamp tool, and I'm just sampling around pretty much anywhere, because I don't need any important details to be cloned onto these areas. It just is sort of wiping them off. You could almost use like an eraser tool here, but if there's some tooth in these other areas of the image, the clone stamp tool is going to place that onto the high, which that's always something we want to preserve. So see how this is starting to clean up and organize these shapes. It's pretty nitpicky and granular, but at the end we'll have a nice smooth lit area on these shoes. So keep in mind I'm zoomed in to like, I actually don't know, like 150% maybe, 200%. But you know, this is what I call molecular level retouching. And there's a purpose for it, a time and a place. This is where you start opening up these, they're like these little worlds start to emerge once you start zooming in this much. And you don't want to always be retouching at this level, definitely not, because you can't see, the forest from the trees. But when you need to get in and really see some of the finer things that's happening in the image, especially for stuff like this where you need to smooth something out, it's really worth it to work in this high zoom and start looking at these individual details very, very closely and smoothing them very carefully. It's another one of those things that's going to stack up to create a whole level of finish at the end. This is one of those things that also adds up. So this isn't just something that you would do for a shoe or for a watch or for a handbag or a piece of jewelry, but you'd certainly do this for a piece of jewelry because there's so much light refraction in an object like that. But you might also do this for something like skin, maybe. Working at a really micro level like this is something that's commonly done in the DB step for skin retouching. So the stuff we learn here on this shoe, once again, it's worth noting that a shoe, in this case, isn't a shoe. It's kind of anything you want to apply these methods to. And if you were thinking about this process in terms of imagining it used on skin and removing blemishes, you can really see the power of this mixer brush and this second iteration of frequency separation being super powerful. Notice I'm switching back to the low. Depending on what I want to see, what I want to pay attention to, I'll switch back and forth interchangeably. All right, so that took a while. That's stuff I would rather do on the front end, but sometimes you just have to just sit down and dig right back into the cleanup. So what I'm going to do is I don't want to clean this up here. I'm going to actually mask that out. You can see that I have these lights, everything including the separation in this in one group, so I can mask all of it out. Excuse me. So I can mask all of it out if I need to, which I'm going to do right here. It's a little bit darker, but I already did all the cleanup on this area, and I just don't want to do that again. So I'm going to brush it out. And you can probably see like my brush is starting to lag a little bit here because we're doing a lot of really processor heavy processor heavy calculations, and using a brush is always a little bit more processor taxing. I'm gonna bring back in some of this light here because it kind of looks like a glow. I'm gonna remove that because it looks like dust. Okay, let's take a look. Step back. Nice, that looks pretty cool. I'm gonna turn it on and off. Yeah, that's nice. Pops right in there. And I think it matches Adam's comp pretty well. We can make changes, and we didn't have to remove that specular highlight again. So that's great. Let's see, what's next? So Adam also, even though he didn't comp this up, he sent me some, what he was calling glints, which I don't know what the technical term is, flares, lens flares. But I'll open this file now that he sent me and show you what I mean. So he sent me this file. This is from his collection, and he labeled the best one here, and I want to pull that and try to incorporate that into the Air Max logo area where the lights are coming through to just give it a little bit more drama and pop. So I'm just going to drag that pixel layer into my file. Okay, so I dragged that flare in here. It's nested in that mask. Once again, I don't want to just set this to screen because whereas it gets results really quick, it's not something I can really control that well. So what I'm going to do is also extract that. Let's go into our channels, see what part of the RGB group looks best. Maybe we can use, let's use green. I'm going to duplicate the channel. What I'm looking for there is really just the channel that has the best information for the element that I'm trying to isolate or extract. In this case, all I'm looking at is this flare right here, and I want to bring it onto a new channel so I can create a mask from it. I'm just going to invert that selection, fill that. I have to click off of it and back on for it to be active. It's kind of annoying. I'm going to fill that with black. I'm going to set that as a selection by command clicking on it. Turn off the layer itself and create a solid color fill with white. So see how quick that is. Now I have this totally controllable element. I know it's just this flare and it's just a mask. I can transform it, I can rotate it, and I know it's not going to change like the color of the shoe at all because it's not a blend mode. It's also not a curve. It's made of pixels, and I know it's always going to be white. I love that level of control with any of the visual elements that I bring in. So what I'm going to do is drop this into, you know what, I'm going to keep this on top because if I drop this into my shoe group, look where it cuts off, right at the edge of the mask. So I don't want it in that mask. I want it independent of the mask. So let's keep that on top. I'm going to just duplicate that, move it into a different spot. I can scale that mask, rotate it some more so it's not quite so recognizable as the same element. Duplicate again, move in there. So you see how fast this can go. It takes a minimum of finesse. Now, I think that's looking pretty cool. I think Adam's gonna like it. I'm gonna put those all into a group. And the only thing is, I don't want it to totally obscure the Air Max logo. There are a number of different ways that I could do this. The quickest and easiest is I'm going to go back to our wonderful collection of paths and set that as a selection. And I'm going to mask out all the flares. But I want a little bit back. Now, I think what I'm going to do is just go back and brush this in very carefully on this mask that I just created. Now, this is a destructive move. I don't normally like doing this, but in this case, this is the quickest way to get good results. Let's put that on 40. Oh, I had that on black. Let's make sure we have white as the color on top. I'm going to put that back down to 20 because I just want to eat up a little bit of this here. Just to bring it into reality a little bit, because it would certainly eat up these letters way more than we'd want it to if we used that photographic information. Now, it's a fine line we're going to walk here with this stuff between creating a realistic, believable lighting effect and preserving the quality of the logo itself. When it comes down to logos, your client really doesn't really care what's real or not. They want their logo to shine. So if you want to avoid having to make those changes later to make the logo better, just do that right off the bat and let them be the ones to make the decision of whether or not to obscure and obstruct the logo. Okay, so I think that's a good start. We can start there, and if we need to do any more of that kind of work on the logo, let's be conservative right now and save that for Adam or the client to tell us. Let's see. One final thing I want to do with these flares is find the initial one. Yeah, So I'm going to group that flare, put it so I can put another mask on it. I kind of don't want to mess with this mask. I want to keep it pristine just in case I need to bring it back, because if I start painting in here, it's going to destroy this mask that holds all the shapes. What I'm going to do is nest that within a group where I can paint on this mask and always have that good shape in the enclosed color fill layer mask. Oh, you know what? I think I have quick mask on. Yeah, so if you accidentally hit the backspace key, you might turn quick mask on and you're gonna see red when you paint into the mask. That can be pretty mind-boggling if you don't know what the solution is. Just hit the backspace key. So I'm doing this because I want to paint out a little bit of that big long flare that's happening off that main one. So let's leave these flares where they are. I think that's looking pretty cool, and we'll let Adam comment on that further.